Today I'm going to talk about a carbon fiber tripod from Fotopro, the X-go Max E2. So I've talked about tripods on this channel a fair amount, and I'll link to a lot of those other videos down in the description below. So when Fotopro reached out to me to say, hey, could we send you a tripod? I took a look at what they had to offer, and they ended up sending me a Fotopro X-go Max E2. And this is essentially a budget carbon fiber tripod. It comes right in around 189 US dollars if there's no sale or anything like that. So it sort of puts it in the budget category, which is really, when I started my landscape photography journey, the category of tripods I was looking at and getting into. And this actually has a lot of features that reminds me of some of my favorite early tripods. Now, a tripod is a key tool for a landscape photographer. We're trying to keep that ISO low. Sometimes we like to do long exposures. But when you're getting into landscape photography, sometimes it's prohibitive to spend a lot of money on a tripod. You just want something that's decent, fits in your budget, while you sort of see if this is gonna be a hobby that you stick with. So this is where a tripod like this comes in. You want something that has a lot of features, is lightweight and sturdy, but not necessarily at a price point that's gonna break the bank, especially as you're trying to figure out how long you're gonna do this hobby. Is landscape photography really for you? Again, when I came back into landscape photography many years ago, this price point was about where I was at when I was looking for a tripod. I just wanted a tripod to be able to get those shots, be able to practice those things I wanted to practice without spending a whole lot of money. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at this tripod. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about some of the specs it has, just sort of the core elements. How tall is it? How short can it go? How much load can it hold? Everything like that. Then we're gonna take a look at some of the key features of this tripod and how they work and what they do. And then we'll wrap this video up with what I think this tripod does really well and a couple features I think that could be improved. So with that, let's dive into the specs. So the Fotopro X-go Max E2 is a carbon fiber tripod to keep it nice and light. It's got 4 leg sections, 1, 2, 3, 4. Its minimum height is 18.7 inches if you collapse the legs and have the center column down as far as it will go. I'm going to show you a quick trick you can use to flip the center column and actually invert your camera and get it a little lower. Its max height is 67.12 inches, so with the legs fully extended and the center column up. I'm 5'11", that would put the camera right here up just a little bit above my eye level. When it's folded, it's 18.7 inches in length, and the way it does that is one of the tripods where the legs will flip up completely over to sort of compact it. Makes it a nice size to be able to put and carry on luggage or something like that. The max diameter of the top tube is 28 millimeters. The weight of the tripod is 3.30 pounds, and that includes with the ball head, so the whole package is 3.3 pounds, a pretty lightweight package. And then the max load it can take is 26.45 pounds, which will help be able to even hold things like, for example, in my case, a Nikon Z7 II with a 100 to 400, it can support that up there and be within the max load limit. So those are the basic specs of the tripod. Let's take a look at some of the features this tripod brings to the table. First thing we'll talk about is the center column. Now, center columns you've heard me talk about. Do you want a center column? Do you not want a center column? And the key with center columns, I'll link to those videos down below, is to just be sure you use them correctly. As you start to extend them, they can get more shaky than if they're completely down at the bottom. So the point being is when you're setting up, aim to have the center column down low. But if you need the composition, or you need the height to get the composition you want, it's fine to bring it up. Just make sure you've got it nice and tight, make sure it's not gonna wiggle, and get a nice solid platform. The key is if you have a center column and you're gonna use it, just try to use it appropriately. But with that said, it has a center column, which is handy for a travel tripod because it does let you have sort of a small form factor for when you're packing and carrying it onto a plane or stuffing it in a car where you might be short on space. Keeps your tripod form factor nice and small. And then the center column can get you that extra height for those times you really need it. A lot of times I would probably shoot this down semi-low. This puts it my normal operating level, but again, it lets you raise it and get a little higher for that composition where you want to shoot down, maybe get a little separation in the elements in your foreground. Now the center column also has a hook to hang a bag or hang a weight. So if you're in a condition where you need just a little bit more weight, a lot of times you can hook a backpack to it or something like that and hang it from here. Just be aware of that. If you're hanging a bag from here, you don't want it swinging underneath because that'll introduce some instability to an otherwise stable tripod. But what you can do is put a hook on here, maybe even a piece of webbing or a piece of rope or something like that, and get the bag so it's just sort of barely sitting on the ground so that the wind's not moving it, but it's still putting some downward pull on it. So it does have that. So I mentioned earlier, one of the ways to get around the minimum height that it has, which is 18.7 inches. So this will unscrew out the bag holder. It unscrews from the thread down here. Lets you pull the center column out. Then you can invert your center column, put it in, and collapse the legs down, and you can invert your camera so that it's much lower to the ground. Now, for me, I find that only useful in certain situations where I desperately want a low composition. I have a really hard time getting my brain to work around an inverted camera and down low. But if you're traveling and you're making some compromises where you want that tripod to be small but flexible, it does have the flexibility to do what you want and be able to flip it if you really want those super low compositions. And the tripod also has the monopod capability. This is a handy little feature. I don't use it a whole lot for landscape photography, but I do use a monopod for some other types of shooting I do. So it's super handy to have a tripod that will let me take one of the legs off, pop the center column out, set this down here, and you screw this together like this, and you've got yourself a monopod. So if you find yourself doing some wildlife photography or standing somewhere or somewhere that a tripod just isn't super convenient, you sort of have a monopod with you to be able to use. So while it's not a required feature for me, it can be a handy feature to have that option to have a monopod available, especially if you happen to be shooting some wildlife. Or again, maybe you're on a boardwalk where you shouldn't be setting up a tripod because it's a trip hazard, but you want a little bit of extra stability for your camera. This tripod lets you do that. Take it apart and put it back together as a monopod. Okay, and next up, it does use twist locks instead of flip locks. Twist locks are my preferred tripod way of changing the leg extensions. I find it super easy. So if we've got all the legs collapsed like this, and I want to extend the whole thing and I know I want it fully extended, I can just wrap my hand around all three, turn them all, work my way back up, and I've extended the leg. So I think twist locks are the way to go. I prefer them over flip locks. So it was nice to see that this tripod had those twist locks. That's just my preferred style on tripods. And the tripod has little flip locks at the top to change the angle of the legs. It's got 3 positions. You can, obviously it'll flip all the way up for putting it away, but it'll also click down to 1 position, 2 position, 3 position as well. So pretty flexible on that front as well. So let's talk a little bit about this ball head. So it's got a couple interesting features. One, it is Arca Swiss compatible. It works fine with my L brackets, no problems. I'm able to put it in landscape orientation, portrait orientation. I've had trouble with some Arca Swiss compatible brackets where it didn't like my L bracket in portrait mode. This one does just fine. It does have a couple levels on it. Got a level on this knob to tighten the clamp. It's got a level on the top so you can make sure you're getting your camera nice and level. It has a 1 tension knob right here. So for the ball head, 1 tension knob, tighten it, locks it right in place. Not really a tension adjustment. It's just 1 knob, loose, tight, works fine. And then we've got a panning knob down here. As you expect, once you get your camera locked in there, you can use this panning knob to change it. Then up here, an interesting feature they've included is the clamp itself has a panning knob. So where is this an advantage? Let's set this tripod a little off kilter. Yeah, I thought this was a neat feature, something I like. I don't have anything that has one of these. So as you can see, I've got this tripod. This, maybe you've set up hastily, you haven't been able to get it evened out, the rocks are uneven, and it's just super hard to get your full base level, right? So you got your tripod here, and if you set your camera and you got it level according to the levels, your tripod's crooked, but you've got your camera level. But say you want to do a panorama where you're going to work your way through the scene. I've done videos on how to do a panorama. I'll link to that down below. But here's what happens. If you only have this panning adjustment, your camera starts to raise up, starts to tilt down. So your panorama would sort of go like this because your ultimate base down here is not level. But if you're set here, let's re-level this. If you're set like this and you're in one of those weird setups where you're having a hard time getting everything completely level, but you've got your camera level, this panning knob lets the camera rotate on the head. So if this is level, now when you pan the camera from right to left, everything stays nice and level, nice and straight. Makes panoramas easy. So to me, this is a really cool feature. I actually don't own a tripod that has this feature in it. I always have to be super sure to get my tripod level, which can be a bit of a pain. But with this, you can be a little off kilter. As long as you get your camera level, use the level on back of your camera or something like that. You can use this knob, loosen it up, work through your panorama. And then if you don't want to use that feature, just keep it tight, and it'll function just like a normal ball head. So I thought that was a pretty cool feature of the ball head, especially in a tripod at this price point. That's like a feature that really lets you, if you're getting back into things, really sort of try things out and see if that's worth it to you or not worth it to you. That's been a fun little feature to have. Like to see that one. And moving down just a little bit from here, this tripod does have 1/4-20 accessory attachments here. This is super handy. I will use it sometimes to mount my video device that I'm using right here. Is I'll use a friction arm that come out, and you can use it to put that second camera, additional camera. If you're doing macro photography, if you can put a little light so you can shine down on whatever you're taking a macro of. These are handy. I've also been known to put in a little screw attachment where I can hang my filter bag from or something like that. Just again, nice handy feature in a tripod at this price point. So lots of tripods have spiked feet options, but a lot of times you have to swap out the rubber foot. You have to unscrew it, put in the spiked foot. Here, the spiked feet are actually underneath the rubber covers. So if you like to use spikes for your tripod, if you're on certain types of terrain, landscapes, you can pop these off and you'll have your spikes right there with you. Otherwise, they're covered with these rubber covers. I tend to use the rubber feet on most of my outings, almost no matter the terrain. Probably not best practice. It's probably more the laziness side, but it's a nice little feature to have that I always have spikes with me if I want them. So I've been using this tripod in some of my outings, local parks like this one, with my heavier setup, my Nikon Z7 II, and everything from a 14 to 30 millimeter lens to a 100 to 400 millimeter lens. It's been working fine for that. The clamp works good with my L bracket. No real problems with that. I've actually been using it in my office for my video camera, a much lighter setup, my Nikon Z30. So several of my most recent office videos I've been using this tripod in the office. And again, that's just to get a feel for it, get a feel for the play. How does it work? How does it, everything like that. So it's been working great for that. But with that said, with a little bit of use, I got a couple features on this tripod that I think are really awesome. And then I've got a couple things I think could be improved. It would really make this tripod super competitive. Okay, so first thing I really like about this is super lightweight. Like, it is surprisingly lightweight. You usually get into a lightweight tripod like this, you start to get, the cost starts to increase a lot. You usually start to hit closer to that $400, $500 range to get a tripod that's this light, especially for one that includes the ball head and a center column on it. When I picked it up and took it out of the box, I was just amazed at how light it was. And sometimes lightness is a trade-off in sturdiness. Now, this does use 28 millimeter diameter upper legs. I tend to use more 30 millimeter, but that said, if you get it extended, your leg lock's tight, center column not up too far, it's pretty sturdy. It's not too bad at all. It gives you a relatively stable base for that. But like I said, super lightweight. I compare this, like I said earlier in this video, this reminds me of some of the earlier tripods I started with. And one of the earlier ones I started with was a Mi Photo tripod. And there's a lot of resemblances between a Mi Photo tripod. Mine was an aluminum version, but it had a center column, folded up, legs up over to help shorten how long it was at its folded up height. You could flip the center column, it had the monopod, all that stuff. But it was much heavier than this particular tripod. I actually weighed these at home, and this did weigh right in about 3.4 pounds. And my Mi Photo tripod that I used to carry it as my video tripod for quite a while, was, I want to say, 4.5 pounds, close to 5 pounds. So it was a big difference between weight. So I don't know how for sure they got the weight of this down so far for a tripod that comes in at 189 USD. Super lightweight. I mean, that is a big advantage of this at this price point. It's really a little bit shocking how lightweight they were able to make this tripod that still has this height and some of the features on it. So then twist locks, we talked about that, but I think that's a great feature. I'm a twist lock person, so I chalk that up to a great feature of this tripod. Happy to see that it has it. It's the feature I like on tripods, to extend the leg, twist lock. So I think that's a great feature on this tripod. And like I said, this panning clamp at the top, I've never used one before, I've never had one before until I got this tripod. And now I see why people sort of seek out ball heads that have that capability, because a lot of times when I'm in the Rocky Southwest and I've got a tripod that can't get completely even, but I can get my camera even, my panoramas can get a little bit of wonkiness to them. So this panning clamp, man, that's a cool feature, especially on a tripod at this price point. Like I said, I think this price point's for someone trying to decide, getting more serious about their landscape photography, but maybe not quite committing to the higher price tripods. So to get a tripod, an entry-level tripod that has lots of features for you to work with, play with, try, it just sort of helps inform you about what features you find important and what features aren't important. So having that panning clamp on here is actually a pretty cool feature. So of course, there's always room for improvements, right? You can always want more, and after you've used something for a little while, there can be some simple, subtle tweaks that might make things better. So in this particular case, there's two things I think that would make this tripod an even better value. And the first one is, well, I've talked about how much I like the twist locks. These twist locks appear to be plastic. And because of that, I have a couple concerns. One, I think it impacts their preciseness. They're advertised as quarter turns, and sometimes it's a quarter turn, but sometimes it's just a touch more. So, and I think that's coming in just because plastic, the tolerances with it just aren't quite as great as you'd get out of, say, an aluminum twist lock. Aluminum keep the weight down, but you get some precision and accuracy of the aluminum. So I would like to see the twist locks switched over to something like aluminum, even if it increased the price a bit. I just feel like that would be a feature that would make these just a little bit easier to use. They always work, they always go up and down. Sometimes it just takes me a little more twisting than I initially expected in order to either loosen it or tighten it. So like I said, perfectly functional. I just think aluminum would help a little bit there. The other piece of that is I worry a little bit because I'm a landscape photographer. This tripod gets put on the side of my bag. It sits on rocks, it gets set down on rocks, and sometimes my bag falls over, and I worry a little bit about if this thing is on the side of my bag and I'm moving along the side of a rock cliff, that the twist lock could get damaged. My aluminum ones on my other tripods are pretty scratched up just from either the bag getting put down, hitting a rock, going through a tight slot canyon, something like that. So I think that's another reason why moving away from these plastic twist locks would be advantageous. Like I said, these twist locks as they are work perfectly fine. I just think aluminum would add a little bit of robustness to it and a little bit of precision to them. And my second area, I think there could be a little bit of room for improvement, is around the ball head. While the ball head is super cool, love the panning feature, like the levels, and it functions fine. It's been fine to hold the load. I have no problems with that. But the sensitivity of the ball head tightener is not quite as precise as I think it could be. A lot of times it takes several twists to get it loose enough to do. And because it took several twists, I got to twist it a lot of times to get it tight enough to hold, especially if I've got a heavier load up here like my Nikon Z7 II with the 100 to 400. Now it holds it, it's no problem. My area of improvement is simply just around how many times it takes to do that. Like I said, it takes several twists to get it locked in. So I would like to see this mechanism looked at just a little bit. It's super close. I don't even have a problem with ball heads that only have one knob to change at. In fact, my preferred ball head is actually one that has only one, but it's just much more precise. It only takes a couple turns, a half a turn, get it loose, tighten it back up, whereas here I'm having to do a lot of twisting. So I'd like to see them just take a little bit of look at that, look at the precision on this. So I think if they can make a little bit of improvement here, make it so that this was a little faster to either loosen or tighten, I think that would really help out this ball head. Again, fully functional ball head, it's worked fine. I've not had any problems with it holding my camera or being able to get it tight enough. It just takes more turns than I'm used to get it tight, or more turns I'm used to get it loose. So overall, I thought this Fotopro X-go Max E had a lot of things going for it. Like I said, I'm amazed at how light it is. It is way lighter than anything I started with at a very similar price point. So that alone is pretty cool, especially for landscape photographers who are carrying their load into the woods and a lot of times want something lighter, but maybe aren't ready to spend a lot of that bigger money on tripods. So that was super cool. It's got a couple cool features with the panning ball head. I think that's super nice. I'm glad that it comes with the twist lock. That's a great thing. The center column, while like I said, people could be on the fence about which way to go with the center column. For a travel tripod or a tripod that's very versatile, sometimes they can be nice as long as you know how to use it properly. Make sure you're not always raising it like this all the time. Only do that if you need to. And then, like I said, it packs down nice and small. So maybe you're looking for a second tripod for travel, but don't want to spend a bunch of money because you don't travel a whole lot with it. This could be a possible consideration for traveling with as well, because it's light, does get down to a pretty compact size, but still pretty versatile once you get to where you're going. So if you're looking for a budget entry-level tripod, I think this offering from Fotopro, this X-go Max E is worth being in your consideration to take a look at and compare to other tripods. Like I said, it's versatile, it's got lots of features at a fairly attractive price point. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see future landscape photography content from me, including tips, tricks, behind the scenes, and mini gear reviews like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and thank you for watching.